Morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to today's discussion forum. We are today going to be looking at the topic that focuses on national productivity and the role of human capital management. We have our discussants coming from the Ministry of Labour, and I will not preempt who the discussants are. And so at this stage, allow me to invite the President of the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management to give his welcoming remarks.
Thank you very much, Council Secretary. Good morning, colleagues, fellow practitioners, HR practitioners, and I'm cognizant of the fact that we did market this event beyond the HR practitioners. We do have people that are of interest to the topic that we have today. So allow me at this juncture to just warmly welcome everybody to this virtual discussion. We are very privileged this morning to have our Minister of Labour and Social Security, Honorable Blenda Moika Tambatamba. And of course, we do have our Labour Commissioner, Mr. Givens Montengwa, and then we also have the Director on National Productivity Development, Mr. Cyprian Mayamba. Colleagues, let me begin by thanking our discussants this morning, who I've just mentioned. Thank you very much for finding time out of your busy schedules to come and grace our occasion this morning. May I also take this opportunity to thank all the participants that have logged in and are ready to participate in this discussion forum. Ladies and gentlemen, the objective of this discussion forum is to explore how we can, through effective human capital management, improve the economic health of the country. As you may be aware, productivity at national level is typically defined and measured in terms of gross domestic product, which is GDP per capita, employed person, or per hour worked. Therefore, actions that improve productivity typically enables wage gains to occur without producing inflation. Therefore, productivity so defined is essential to an economy's ability to create real wealth. The role of human capital management is undeniable, as human capital and economic growth have a strong correlation. Human capital affects economic growth and can help to develop an economy by expanding the knowledge and skills of its people. Colleagues, as managers of human capital, the most strategic asset, we are not divorced from this equation, as we are at the helm of programs and activities that shape the knowledge, skill sets, and experience that employees have in an economy. Employees within an organization are very vital in the management and survival of an organization. This is because their performance is influenced by a set of human resource management practices. While this is true and well known, maximizing productivity remains a major concern for many individuals, organizations, sectors, and our economy at large. Inevitably, this impacts the standard of life and the quality of living in our country. In view of this discourse, ours is a patriotic duty of providing leadership which will make organizations' workforce thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome you all again to this discussions forum and invite the Labour Commissioner to make his remarks, and later on invite our Labour Commissioner to also open her heart and speak to the HR practitioners in Zambia. I thank you. Back to you, Mr. Moderator. Sorry, Labour Commissioner can come through. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Zoom webinar meeting, which has been organized
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome you all again to this discussions forum and invite the governor to make his remarks, and let alone invite our Labour Commissioner to also open his heart and speak to the HR.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Am I clear?
Yes, we can hear you, Commissioner.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
To you, Mr. Moderator. So, Labour Commissioner can come through.
Sorry, which, as you know, has been organized by Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management under the theme Enhancing Productivity Through Effective Human Capital. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to set the tone for this important meeting today, we have the privilege of having in our attendance Honorable Brenda Mwikatambatamba, MP and Minister of Labor and Social Security, who will be able to guide this meeting through a keynote presentation. It is not my show, and in that regard, I would proceed to call upon the Minister to proceed and address the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. The President and Council of the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management, senior government officials, members of the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management, distinguished participants, members of the press, should I just say ladies and gentlemen. I am extremely delighted to be invited to deliver a keynote address, this virtual forum under the theme Enhancing Productivity Through Effective Human Capital Management, because indeed this is an unsung story, that it is because of the mandate of human resource managers that we can ever, in the first place, ensure that there's a continuous management of work personnel while in the process of production. I wish to express my gratitude to the Zambian Institute of Human Resource Management for arranging the forum, for identifying human capital as a main determinant of productivity, especially at a time when the New Dawn government is preparing ground for rapid economic recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the process of a turnaround. And if we are to turn around the economic situation that we find ourselves in, this conference is one that will make us realize how we must realign ourselves. My presentation this morning is divided into the 5 main areas, namely policy and legislative framework, quality of human capital, management of human capital for optimum results, future of work, and occupational safety and health. Number 1, policy and legislative framework. As demonstration of the highest level of commitment to promoting human capital development, His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema, in his address to the first session of the 13th National Assembly, identified the following as the broad policy direction for the next 5 years. Number 1, economic transformation and job creation, human and social development, environmental sustainability, and good governance environment. I am delighted that these thematic areas resonate very well with the objectives of the National Productivity Policy, which, as you may know, has recently been launched. According to the National Productivity Policy, productivity refers to converting resources, that is, inputs into products and services or outputs efficiently, effectively, and with optimum utilization of human and physical capital for the benefit of the organization, society, the economy, and the environment at large. Productivity is also regarded as a state of mind. And that's why we talk about mindset time and again. Practitioners have been talking and emphasizing the need for mindset change if we are to change. If the economy is to turn around, there must be mindset change. That is the determination to improve on yesterday's performance and to do even better tomorrow. The National Productivity Policy, whose vision is a productive and competitive nation by 2031, is aimed at facilitating consensus on the interpretation of productivity, strengthening the capacities of institutions mandated to promote productivity, acting as a catalyst for motivating individuals and organizations in all sectors of the economy to work in a concerted manner in efforts aimed at raising national productivity levels and providing comprehensive coordinating mechanism. Due to the importance with which the new administration attaches to productivity, I wish to direct the National Productivity Development Department at my ministry to ensure that the policy is widely disseminated, especially among human resource management practitioners and other professionals, as they represent the entry point for adoption of workplace productivity improvement initiatives. In the same vein, I wish to call upon the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management practitioners to ensure that all its members become productivity ambassadors in their respective workplaces, and that productivity training forms a part of their continuous professional development. Number two, quality human capital. Human capital can be broadly defined as the stock of knowledge, skills, attitudes, and other personal characteristics embodied in people that helps them to be productive. Therefore, formal education, that is early childhood education, primary, secondary, tertiary, and adult training, as well as informal and on-the-job training and work experience, are all represent investment in human capital. And this is across the board in every industry, every part of the industry. The quality of human capital is therefore a result of several factors, some of which are outside the control of the organization. It is therefore necessary that human resource practitioners take an interest in the quality of education of the country by supporting the acquisition of appropriate knowledge, skills, and attitude by the learners. Human capital is highly placed and nurtured, human capital, if rightly placed and nurtured, can do wonders for an organization. Similarly, an organization needs to ensure that its human resource is properly selected, organized, and deployed to deliver the desired outcomes to achieve this appropriate instruments such as psychometric tests, a service which my ministry offers, can be utilized. Psychometric tests are scientifically designed to measure individual intelligence, ability, personality, and motivation. In addition, psychometric tests can help predict a person's future behavior and performance. The biggest value is in the ensuring that the objectives selected in human resources for employment or training are known for eliminating discrimination, favoritism, and nepotism. This, I must emphasize, is in keeping with the merit-based principle of the New Dawn administration when it comes to recruitment, selection, and placement. This is an issue of quality at the entry point. This, as you have heard, if not well done, may yield the undesired results at the industrial space or the workplace, and hence productivity can be affected in the negative. I therefore wish to urge you, distinguished human resource practitioners, to consider adopting use of psychometrics in addition to other methods of recruitment as a standard practice. Many years ago in this country, in the First Republic, we were very good at this. Along the way, we may have lost or reduced the quality in one way or another. And so human resource management practitioners are called upon to benchmark with other countries, industry within the country, so that we get back to that place where we are using scientific approaches, selection, deployment of human resource. May I also mention that in line with the National Productivity Policy, government will soon introduce legislation to facilitate widespread use of psychometric tests and to promote private sector participation. This is one of the tools that we will, at all costs, ensure that we examine the utilization and impact of such a tool. My ministry has also developed a computerized psychometric testing system, which will be operationalized very soon. Number 3, management of human capital for optimum results. Getting the right human resource is just the first step. In order to derive optimum benefits from the workplace, it is important that appropriate systems are put in place to properly orient them and align them to the organization's strategic goals. It is also imperative that workplace programs are implemented to nurture the talents of workers, foster teamwork, ensure work-life balance, provide incentives for higher productivity, guarantee adequate pay and social security to ensure performance appraisals and ensure performance appraisals systems that contribute to attaining of these goals are also in place. I must reiterate that the responsibility of human resource practitioners is to ensure that there is accountability in the use of the human capital, including ensuring good conditions of service and a strict compliance with the law. In fact, you are the eyes as practitioners of my office. You must therefore ensure that the right thing is done in your workplace so that we don't have unnecessary industrial unrest, which will in turn negatively impact on productivity. Human resource practitioners are the gatekeepers. They are the first step before you even get to management, before you get to this ministry. If there is excellency at the practice of this profession, then we will reduce grievance processing in this ministry. Number 4, human resource management and the future of work. As we reflect at the time of this forum, we must be alive to the many challenges confronting us. Prominent among these is the changing global market dynamics, characterized by technologies that are disrupting business models and changing the ways organizations work. This has made managing human capital, training them, and deploying them for effective outcomes a more challenging task. It is expected to become even more daunting with the first emerging force with the first emerging fourth industrial revolution driven by artificial intelligence and robotics. The International Labour Organization, ILO, has been instructive on this score. It is in its Global Commission on the Future of Work Initiative Centenary Report in 2019, the International Labour Organization calls for decisive action and needs to seize the moment to unlock the opportunities that changes such as technological advancement, climate change, and globalization bring. The report further recommends a human-centered agenda for the future of work that strengthens the social contract by placing people and the work they do at the center of economic and social policy and business practice. Number 5, occupational safety and health. This is a matter of everyone going home health and safe every day. We also cannot ignore the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the world of work, particularly on the availability of the workforce due to infection, caregiving for others, and regrettably, in some cases, even mortality. As a response to the pandemic, there is the need for national and corporate leaders to be equipped with the tools to accurately assess the impact, design new ways of organizing work to build resilience, and engaging, and most importantly, communicating the changes to the workforce. In this regard, I am glad to inform you that my ministry has, through the National Productivity Development Department, developed a program to help enterprises build resilience against the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic through installation of both preventive and turnaround business solutions. I therefore wish to encourage you to take advantage of the unique package to ensure sustainability during the pandemic period and beyond. I also urge you to take all the necessary precautions to protect workers, customers, and general public, including facilitating access to vaccinations and workplace health safety measures. As you may also know, government through statutory instruments number 48 of 2020 has further provided for exemptions from some provisions of the Employment Code Act number 3 of 2019 to mitigate against the effect of the pandemic. And number 6 is my concluding remarks, that as I conclude, I wish to call upon the Human Resource Management fraternity through the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management to prioritize creation of strategies to support the development of the productive capacities of workers. This can be done through investing in lifelong training to reskill, upskill the workforce in order for them to remain relevant in the midst of the future of work challenges, which I earlier alluded to, complementing government's efforts of expanding access to education and training, promoting entrepreneurship and work-based learning, and the creating of awareness on the rights of workers and ensuring strict compliance to the labor laws. My ministry will not take kindly to willfully violating of the labor laws and the custodians, and as the custodians of the country's human capital, I wish to urge the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management to strongly promote compliance to the labor laws. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I wish to encourage discussions of this nature as we reposition the country for economic recovery and turnaround for the betterment of our people. I thank you for your attention as I look forward to exiting and as I look forward to the exciting and exchange of ideas freely amongst ourselves. This is a momentous moment of change. Adopt it, take it up, and broaden and deepen the technologies, the knowledge that are available so that we are able to realize the dream of a productive workforce that will turn the cost of the economy of our beloved country. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Thank you, everyone. I think we are now guided, and moderator, you can pick it up from there. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for your remarks. Always inspiring, and we look forward to now delving deep into some of the issues that you've raised. We appreciate your time this morning. We appreciate your presence. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Most welcome. All the best.
Thank you. All right. So at this stage, I'll ask the discussants to just have their microphones on. Director Mayamba, Labor Commissioner, if you could have your cameras on, so that the audience could follow the conversation and just engage with you as well. We already have a number of questions, being sent, and a lot of people have turned, up to participate in this discussion forum, and we appreciate that you were able to make time for us this morning, so we could just look deeper into these issues. It was interesting to see, and to hear the definition of productivity already being covered there. That was going to be our starting point. Director Mayamba, would you just want to highlight the salient issues that we must pay particular attention to whenever we're considering issues of national productivity and even productivity at occupational level?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mtonga. And just to check, is my audio clear?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right, no, thanks a lot. And I think just to build on what the Honorable Minister has said in our presentation, you see, productivity is more of a state of mind. And this is why even the approaches that we assume or that we promote are those of behavioral nature. So we try as much as possible to encourage that when it comes to issues of improving productivity, we focus on the human. So we assume a human-centered approach to promoting productivity because of the behavioral aspects that have a very big impact on productivity. In the definition we had, productivity is efficient and effective.
I think we lost you for a couple of seconds. If you could just take 10 seconds or so and just, hi, Director Mayamba, are you there?
Productive individuals. So it actually starts from there. So first and foremost, individuals must be productive, for the institutions to be productive, and eventually for the country to be productive. But I want to emphasize a lot.
Sorry, Dr. Mayamba, your connection is intermittent. It's cutting again.
Resource play, and yourselves as participants. Okay, so how is it now?
I think it's stabilized now.
Okay, so let's see if we can get okay.
Moderator, we seem to have lost Mr. Mayamba.
He is just trying to move to a different gadget. We'll just give him a second.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
We still seem to have an intermediate connection, Director. Maybe as you
I don't know.
try, yeah.
How is the connection?
Well, it is still intermittent. It's not smooth. Maybe as you try to just resolve the connectivity issues, we could quickly, Commissioner, pick your mind on some of the issues that were raised by, the Honorable Minister, especially, issues in line with, legal reforms and the like. I have a question here. That is speaking to a couple of issues. Issue number one is in reference to section 64, subsection 1, which basically provides that's in the ECA, which basically provides for the constitution of the Skills Advisory Committee. And the question says, notably so, the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management is supposed to be part of this committee, but left out at law in this respect. Are we likely to see a revision of this provision under this administration to allow the profession that is responsible for managing the country's talent to participate in issues, of looking at skill gaps at country level? Commissioner, are you able to just address this question?
Thank you. Yes, I can address it. Am I clear?
Yes, you are. It would also be nice if you could turn on your mic, your camera.
Okay. Yeah, when you look at the Skills Advisory Committee as constituted under Section 64(1), it has the General Ministry responsible for national planning, representative, commerce, Ministry for Science and Vocational Training, the Higher Education, Department of Immigration, Office of the President, the unions, and the representative of the Federation of Trade Unions. So outside this Skills Advisory Committee, perhaps what must be understood in context is that we have the social partners who sit under the tripartite consultative Labor Council under the Industrial and Labor Relations Act. So if you pick it from that angle, you realize that the unions are represented, the employers are represented, and the government are represented. And clearly, when you look at Section 64 also, it's a depiction of that tripartite consultative Labor Council. And that exclusion is not really there because at the end of the day, when this committee sits to deliberate on issues, it has powers to call any person who in its view has the expertise or necessary skills which may be required for that particular topic. So it doesn't necessarily need to be amended, because if we proceeded to amend for the inclusion of Zarim, then what will stop Zika from saying, no, we need accountants? What will stop the lawyers from saying we need? So this therefore has a semblance of a cross-cutting representation, so that at the end of the day, those gaps, like you are noticing, if it's there, it will be filled in at the time that the committee is sitting. They'll be able to factor in that expertise by inviting that person. So from where I sit, I think the constitution of this committee is sufficient because it has powers to reach out to any expert whatsoever, be it the human resource practitioners, legal practitioners, those in the accountants world, engineers, what have you. So at the end of the day, we still have access to everyone to whom this committee would consider as necessary for that given topic. And I wish to know that the critical skills list is so encompassing. It is cross-cutting. It goes across different professions, different fields of study, so that at the end of the day, you cannot really have everyone on board in terms of the committee itself, but you can have those people by way of inviting them as and when the committee is sitting. So I think that's how I can answer it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that response. In keeping with the response that you've given, Commissioner, it would be said that since the topic of discussion under this committee looks at skills, and we cannot divorce skills from talent, and HR practitioners being responsible for talent in the various organizations, that you cannot really then separate HR practitioners or the Institute of Zambia, Human Resource Institute of Zambia, the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management from a discussion of this nature, because whenever you're discussing talent, either from the angle of engineers or the angle of accountants, at the end of the day, the gatekeepers and the custodians of the talent agenda at organizational level would still remain HR people. And so in terms of appreciating what gaps you basically have and what input you basically have in that respect, then you're looking at having participation that would actually be giving insights that might not come from different professions, in the sense that HR cuts across all the different professions. So in this particular respect, how would you address a reaction to the position that you've given that would suggest that HR in this particular context must be treated differently, in the sense that the key theme for every meeting is going to be talent, and that is what HR brings to the table: talent, the culture of organizations, and leadership issues. And so in identifying gaps and everything, HR then is best centered to be able to provide input, and that input will be very, very critical in that particular sense. How would you react to a reaction in that respect to your comment?
Thank you so much for that elaborate question.
Commissioner, are you there?
Hello?
Hi, we lost you for a second.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I was saying HR plays a role that is centered around, firstly and foremost, employer-employee relationship. And that said, the facets around employer-employee relationships are represented by the employer and the employee, or the employee's representative, the unions. So at the end of the day, when they are practicing what the HR has already put in place, which is a contract of employment, these people have recourse to that expertise through consultative forums, through the interfaces or synergies that are formed. And you and me, as you know, Zarim reports to the ministry, or is under the jurisdiction of Ministry of Labor. Ministry of Labor is represented by the Labor Commissioner here, so that if the topic, because there will be different topics at any given time. Yes, HR could reasonably be considered as the common denominator. But that said, you must pick it. That's why I was bringing the angle of social partners. In the Ministry of Labor, all matters are approached on the platform of social partners. Why? Because if you just go the professional route, then the aspects dealing with the employees, the unions, what have you, will cry foul. And then also when you ignore the employer's aspects, then the employers will also cry foul. And that's why I'm saying the ministry sits at a symmetrical line where there's a division between two parties to this contract. And the HR input at that stage would have already been well represented in terms of the documents, the constitutive documents of a contract. And if questions begin to arise at that level, we will simply bring the HR practitioner to the equation for further guidance. And that's why I was saying, yes, the Act, perhaps we should discuss it in detail. When you look at the Attorney General's chambers is responsible for enacting the laws. So when they come to this committee, they bring expertise, the ramifications. If that question arises to say, well, this critical list we are coming up with, if we come up with a law to say all universities have to start training in ABCD, what will be the implication? Attorney General will be able to answer that. And then the Minister responsible for science and vocational training will say, yes, it is possible, we can do that. Then you are looking at commerce. What is the standing of the industry in terms of this qualification or in terms of this program which you want to introduce? And you are also talking about the gaps, immigration, we talk about from the applications that we receive. There are so many foreigners coming in this field. Going forward, can we reasonably manage to have this training done? Zambia Federation of Employers, most practitioners stand in the stead of employers. And through this platform, they are also able to contribute. Human resource practitioners are in fact members of this Zambia Federation of Employers. So even at that stage, there will still be some submissions that could still come through that window. So you have a window of the ministry, you have the window of the Federation of Employers. And then you have also a most representative Federation of Trade Unions. As you know, some of these union leaders have a background in HR, they are HR practitioners, what have you. So I know you are not really well pronounced in terms of a paragraph, in terms of a provision that is specifically saying a representative of Zambia Human Resource Institute or Institute of Zambia Human Resource. But there is still the tapping in of knowledge through these various representatives. But that said, if there is a strong feeling, as it seems there is, then it is not for me to shoot down that submission, but at an appropriate time, that could be presented to the appropriate authorities, and it could be one of the bases upon which an amendment can be done. But for now, I was saying that so far, I have not seen the lack of representation by extension in terms of those that constitute this committee. Quite elaborate, but I'm not too sure if that clearly answers your question, but that's how I look at it.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for that response. I see the President of the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management has his hand up. Mr. President?
Yeah, no, just thank you, Mr. Moderator and the Labor Commissioner. I think in the interest of time, I see Mr. Mayamba is back. The discussion that has been going on. It's very dear to us, Mr. Commissioner. We do feel that we are at the center of that triangle ourselves as HR practitioners. When we visited the Labour Minister, she rightly prescribed us as midfielders because we are on the ground. Whatever the discussion that is going on in the tripartite, the people that will give you the feel or the feedback that is on the ground, it's us HR practitioners. So whenever we may not be pronounced, but whenever you're having those meetings, please do consider to invite us, and we'll be able to provide the guidance and the value to that meeting. We've seen of late labor laws that come into effect, and when they come to implement those labor laws in the workplaces, it's us. And then we find that these are straightforward lacunas. How did they come to this stage where the law is even passed? We wish we were there. We could have provided the guidance. So that's that's the angle we are coming from. I think in the interest of time, Mr. Moderator, maybe we can go back to the productivity discussion. Mr. Mayamba seems to have gotten more bundles now of the internet. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Mayamba, could I direct your attention to maybe highlighting to the session today? How will you measure national productivity, and what variables you've been tracking where you think that we could leverage on in terms of impacting, productivity at national level, but also it could be at occupational level. I know that in passing, Minister did, hint on some of these issues, but just for the appreciation of the depth of some of the work, the depth of the work that you do, could you just share with us this morning? I think your mic is off. Right.
Okay, so thanks for having me back, and I hope you can get me. Thanks, Mr. President.
Loud and clear now. Yeah.
The bundles now seem to be intact, but there's no harm. We could still send some over. So, Mr. Moderator, in terms of measuring productivity, I'll probably give a scenario both at institutional level and at national level. So at national level, we use the national account statistics. We use the GDP figures that we get from the Zambia Statistical Agency. We also use the labor force statistics. So in terms of measuring, productivity is measured as a ratio, the ratio of output to input. So that is a mathematical description of productivity. So we always compare the output to the inputs. We're not only interested in the output, which is production. We're also interested in what has gone into the production process. That is why our concern is really how well are the inputs or the resources being utilized. Are they being utilized efficiently? Are they being utilized effectively? Are they being used to the optimum capacity possible? And so the formula being output over input. So our output is our GDP figures for any industrial sector, or even at national level, we can aggregate. So we've got the national measures being GDP over the average number of hours, which we get from the labor force survey statistics, which, as you may know, we publish as a ministry in collaboration with ZAMSTAT, annual productivity, annual labor force survey reports, and even quarterly labor force survey reports. So that is a calculation or computation information. We use financial, the financials of an institution to be able to compute.
I think we have an interruption again.
Mr. Moderator, am I still on?
We lost you for a couple of seconds, but yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. So at the institutional level, our computation of productivity is based on financial information. We use the value added concept in terms of what did you get as your inputs and what value have you added. And so that's one of the reasons why you heard the minister mentioning the issue of us soon legislating issues of productivity, because we want to make it possible for us to be able to measure productivity at company level. And for us to be able to do that, we may need to have that collaboration with the companies so that we can access the financial information and that it will be safe for companies to share that information with us, because the intentions are that we need to help you assess your levels of productivity. But also beyond that, at the institutional level, you heard the Honorable Minister mention that we've actually now developed a package for helping companies be able to recover from the effects of COVID-19. And so the package is an institutional-wide assessment using a criteria of 10 points to be able to assess the institution from the strategic framework, the structure, systems, the skills, the staff, productivity, quality, and all those aspects that attend to the management of an institution. So what we do is that we assess an entire institution's profile in terms of productivity, and then we're able to devise or design appropriate interventions. Since, as you may know, there are a lot of tools that can be used to improve productivity and quality. And so what we don't want is to have a one-size-fits-all, but we want to have appropriate package or toolbox of tools which are appropriate for the circumstances of an institution. But also, what we also do is that we also provide training to managers in institutions so that they can also be able to measure the productivity of their own institutions, because that's a starting point. And I also must be quick to mention that when it comes to productivity measurement, we actually measure productivity as an aggregate value or ratio. So we don't actually encourage measuring of productivity at individual level. It is possible to measure performance at individual level because it is necessary that we assess the performance of the workers, because that can now be used for purposes of, for instance, confirmation, for purposes of the routine, performance appraisals. We can use it even for purposes of remuneration. But when it comes to productivity, we encourage teamwork. So we don't want to really break down productivity to individual level, except to the extent that the individuals could be capacitated, maybe through training, maybe through team building, maybe through certain skills for them to be able to contribute to the big picture. So the reason why we don't break it down at the bottom to individual productivity levels is that there'll be no value, because even if you improve the productivity of one person, if the next person in the value chain is not productive, then everything is nullified. And so what we insist is that there should be productivity across the entire value chain. So which means that everybody in the institutional organization must have their productivity levels raised, because then it does make sense. That's right.
Okay. All right.
So in a nutshell,
yeah.
So you can go ahead, Mr. Mton.
Yes, I was actually going to draw your attention to the recently launched, framework on productivity. In comparing Zambia's, ratios at the capita level of income, at close of the year 2020, we were standing at somewhere around $1,050 per capita. And the lower end of that, ratio for the sub-Saharan African region is standing somewhere around 1,483.88, right? And we see that there is quite a gap between where we're standing as Zambia and where the region is standing. Could you just, for the benefit of the attendees in this discussion forum today, highlight how the new programs that the ministry is launching will help to be able to turn around this picture that we have?
Yes, thanks a lot. I think for those very important observations. And I must mention that in terms of competitiveness, yes, indeed, I think that there's still a lot to do. As a country, I think we still need to do quite a lot. The figures that you've quoted are actually an indicator of the gap that we have both in Sub-Saharan Africa and also in the region. But there is hope in the sense that the policy on productivity, which the Honorable Minister alluded to, which was launched this year in March, is actually going to serve as a mechanism for us to be able to turn around the fortunes of this country. We're now talking about the 8th National Development Plan. And so we've had all these plans since independence. And what could have been a missing link in all these plans were issues of productivity, because we do not have a policy in this country on matters of productivity. And where the hope lies is in the fact that we were not reinventing the wheel per se. Okay, the steps that we're taking have actually been undertaken by countries elsewhere. A very good example I could give, and especially that you cited the per capita income figures, is Singapore, for instance. In 1960, Singapore was in the same range of per capita income with Zambia. As we are speaking right now, Singapore is a first world country in the same range as the US, Japan, China, Germany. And now what has happened in the past 60 years is that the people of Singapore have actually transformed their country in a single generation. People who lived in Singapore in 1960 have actually seen their country move from being a third world to being a first world. And this gives us motivation in the sense that though we are at the point at which we are, and the Honorable Minister mentioned, we are preparing ground for the transformation and the turnaround of the economy. And this is going to be done, among others, on the basis of optimizing the human capital. Because, it's the same machines that we use in this country that are used elsewhere in the economies that are more competitive than ourselves. So what makes a difference really is the human element. So it's the same computers we're using here that are used elsewhere in the US, in America, in Europe, and so on. But so what then makes a difference? It's a human element. And this is the reason why we're focusing a lot on the human element. That's where the difference comes in. And the focus is really not so much just on the knowledge, not so much on the skills, but also on the attitudes. And I think this is where the difference can be seen. You are aware, Mr. Moderator, that even differences in attitudes have been attributed for people even just across the border, where in certain areas we are able to, for instance, even recommend that people just from across the border will be able to do a good job in a particular area as opposed to our own people. And so this tells you a lot, and that we need to take an interest. And like the keynote speech actually reminded us that human capital is not necessarily what you get at a point you're recruiting. What
Hi, Director. I think we've lost you again for 10 seconds or so.
Okay, so all right. Am I still with you?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, am I still with you? All right, so what we're trying to say is that as human resource practitioners, what we get through the gates of our institutions through recruitment It's a result of what has been built over time, from birth to the schooling system, through training and their naturalization in society. You know, that's why they get some habits or some attitudes, some characters are picked along the way, and we get them into the workplace. And this is the reason why we should be interested as well in attending to issues that relate to the upstream processes through the schooling system before we get these people downstream in employment. And as well as human resource practitioners, it's important that we get, or we take an interest in also affecting the education system, providing mentorship to our learners. Most of them don't know what careers are there in industry. They just end up in a college or university. They do whatever they find, what they can afford, and they show up on your doorstep and say, here I am, and I'm an accountant, or I'm an HR practitioner, I've done public relations, and so on. And so we actually are getting what really is available. So it is time that we also take an interest in what happens to these before they get to the workplace. And once they get to the workplace, again, the work starts from there. There's a famous saying from Toyota Motor Corporation. As you know, Toyota is one of the leading companies in the world. In Zambia, on average, out of every 5 cars on the street, 5 of them will be Toyota, isn't it? On average. That's so. The Toyota Motor Corporation provides a very huge inspiration in this respect. For them, they have a motto that before we make cars, we make people. So when you enter Toyota Motor Corporation, the first thing the company does is to train you, is to orient you. In other words, they first make you into a Toyota before you can actually start making Toyotas. And this you can see in most leading corporations, in most leading companies, even here in Zambia. Most of them are characterized by having a very deliberate program of nurturing their personnel, to the extent that even long after they've left, they'll still have a lot of attachment to the company. So they don't just take to say, here we've got a graduate, and so this graduate will give us everything that we need. They also take an interest in ensuring that this graduate actually becomes the person that they need. Of course, it comes at a cost, but I can guarantee that the cost is worthwhile.
Thank you so much. We see statistics that ILO publishes that speak to things like working poor or the working poverty rate, which basically tries to tie a relationship between efforts to alleviate poverty through employment offerings and all. And in essence, I think it is speaking to the extent to which employment that may be offered is qualitative in that particular respect. I'm not sure whether or not you keep, KPI, or you keep indexes like that, or key performance indicators that would, highlight to what extent even the, employed population in Zambia would actually be, standing in a situation where we actually have, some quality of jobs being met in terms of specifications in that respect. And obviously, as you deal with that question, I would quickly like to just also tap into your thoughts around what programs we have at this particular stage to drive things around equitable, employment practices, or equal earnings for equal work related kind of things. I don't know whether you are able to comment on that. And I know that there is probably an aspect that would need some legal perspective. Maybe the Labor Commissioner could have some comments on this as well.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I think in terms of metrics, we have started as a ministry publishing productivity statistics, because we cannot make decisions on productivity unless we've got statistics on productivity. So we publish beginning last year. We published what is called the Zambia Productivity Report. So we did a baseline for the period 2012 to 2018. So right now we are compiling statistics for the period 2020, 2019, and 2020, so that we're going to be current. Because we do realize that, for instance, when making human resource decisions, such as, for instance, determining wages, we needed to have some statistics on productivity. And so we started this process of coming up with statistics. Secondly, in terms of programs, we have outlined, particularly in the National Productivity Policy, which I mentioned earlier, and I think the Honorable Minister also did mention, and we'll try and ensure that copies are available to all the members of the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management. It's also accompanied with an implementation plan, a very elaborate implementation plan for the period 2021 to 2025 for 5 years. And so in terms of programming, our most probably, I would say, effective way of promoting productivity is one through awareness creation. Just by being aware or being sensitized, research has shown that productivity can improve by up to 20% by just raising the consciousness about productivity and quality. And number two is through training, that is equipping both the managers and the workers in productivity techniques. Like I said, there are a lot of techniques, hundreds of them. But what we try and do is that we try and apply those which are relevant. And now, we cannot always be there. We cannot be everywhere to start with. And so we normally target what we call as productivity champions or the change agents in the institutions, because those are the ones now who have to bring down to every level. So it's those people like yourselves, human resource practitioners, who have both influence upwards and downwards, who can be able to help in setting or putting in place systems for improving productivity. Now, productivity is not a very complicated term as it sounds. It is a very simple term or systems which have to be put in place. I'll give an example with the programs we are having for small and medium enterprises. With small and medium enterprises, the biggest impediment is systems. They just don't have systems. If I'm a welder, I'll set up a welding shop. Now, because I'm an expert welder, I'll focus so much on the technical aspects of welding. So I'll neglect issues of financial management. I'll neglect issues of human resource management. I'll neglect issues of marketing and other issues. So what we simply help them come up with are just systems for financial management, maybe how to come up with a sales daybook, to have a system such that when money comes in, maybe it is first put in the bank, and then it is drawn and spent, to have systems for recruitment, that they don't just pick people from the street, but they will do an assessment before they recruit, and they do some training. And you can imagine a lot of on-the-job training goes on in these small enterprises. So they just have those systems, and they actually also ensure that they comply with the law. And so we break it down into very, very simple terms. Marketing systems are also put in place. Most of those don't even have phone numbers of their clients as a starting point. So it is those very, very simple things. So we ask them questions to say, what are the 1, 2, 3 things in terms of your operations? What are the 1, 2, 3 things in terms of your customers? 1, 2, 3 things in terms of your human resource. So they should have some 1, 2, 3 things on their fingertips. So already those are very simple systems which can be used to improve on the productivity. We developed a COVID resilience package, and we first started to apply this to the small enterprises, but it also has got the same effect for large enterprises. And so when it comes to programming, that's the kind of programming that we put in place. But like I mentioned, we cannot be everywhere. So we actually target the change agents. We actually target organized groups of people like the Institute of Human Resource Management and other organized setups, because then that forms a critical mass of knowledge and skills that we want to have an impact in the country. Okay. Then on issues of equal pay, I want to probably let Senior Counsel Labor Commissioner to address those.
Sure. Maybe before Labor Commissioner comes, from your perspective as Director for Productivity, would there be a deliberate level of engagement that you would see necessary at this particular stage to, kind of fast track the implementation of the plan and the programs that you've highlighted in collaboration with the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management?
Yes, indeed. I think the Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management is very critical in us realizing the objectives of the national productivity policy, because, like I said, it takes a behavioral approach, and we are the people that are really in charge of the people, that is the workers, and so you actually are a very strategic partner in this process. And in terms of deliberate programs to collaborate with the Institute, yes, I think off my fingertips, I can already think of possible interactions such as what we are having now, okay, and several other fora that we can share views. It's also possible that from this group of professionals or practitioners, we can actually begin to develop the change agents, the people that are going to effect change in their institutions. And like I mentioned, the things that we talk about are not strange. It is things that you people already know and they are doing. And so we just package them in a way that they actually can help in achieving the strategic objectives of the institutions. So we don't want productivity to be like a separate project, one that you do 1 hour before you knock off. So it is something that should be built in to your work systems from the time you report for work up to the time you knock off. Even just the way that you plan your work. For instance, you've got a plan that you had last week, you've got a plan this week. There are chances that you don't even look at what you had planned last week, whether you achieved or did not achieve. You just pick up from where you left. So there are no lessons which are drawn from how you performed in the past. So those are simple techniques that we use to enhance and improve our productivity. In my own office here, I've tried to reduce the size of the letters that leave my office to just 1 page. So we're having a policy called one page letter. So if you cannot get the message onto 1 page, then we'll probably have gone into discussing other things. So we try as much as possible to keep it to 1 page. If we cannot, then we keep it perhaps a page and a half.
Okay.
So we're almost getting there. So at one point we're at almost 2 or 3 pages. And so we're trying to reduce ideas to 1 page. So if we cannot communicate an idea in 1 page, then we really have to find reasons why we have to go to the next page.
Okay.
So these are simple productivity techniques. Other examples I would is, for instance, when we are promoting strategic alignment, we use simple tools or techniques such as the balance scorecard.
Okay.
A balance scorecard, we normally apply it only to an institution, the 4 perspectives: financial, customers, learning and growth, and operations. But we forget that this can also be applied to an individual. If, for instance, you ask me, Mr. Moderator, what are the 4 aspects of my life that I want to excel at?
Okay.
So I should be able to have plans around those 4 key areas. Okay. Probably depending on the stage of life at which you are. For the young ones, perhaps number 1 will be career, perhaps number 2 will be family life, number 3 probably will be social, maybe number 4 will be spiritual. All right, so as you are growing older, maybe number 1 will be spiritual, number 2 will be family, career probably number 3. But you've organized your life into 4 or 3 areas that you want to excel at. Because by doing that, will be actually enhancing your effectiveness as a person first and foremost. So there are simple tools which, once through discussions such as this, you can begin to actually apply. First of all, as an individual, you can do the same in your home. You can do the same in your workplace and wherever, in your social interactions, okay, and so on, even with your phone conversations, Mr. Mtonga. If you cannot relay your message within one minute or two, then the rest of the call is unproductive. Okay? So you already begin to set yourself standards that I'll not have a more than maybe 30-minute conversation. Unless perhaps the subject maybe is not business, maybe the subject is social, maybe they're discussing about football or something like that. But if it's a business, so you get my point in terms of how we try and break this down into practical themes or terms that actually resonate with the way we live our own lives.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Director, for those valuable insights. Commissioner, issues around ensuring that there is job quality, in that there is equitable practices out there, that there is equity, that the working environment does not hamper productivity, but actually creates an environment where people can thrive. Your comments on that, how adequate our current legal frameworks. They may have been discussions or debates around whether or not the current ECA is adequately covering and ticking all the boxes. Voices from different angles around whether we should enhance certain provisions in that respect. Your reactions. I know that I've broadened the whole question, just to try and pick what your reactions would be.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mtonga. It's a loaded question. The starting point is that, for example, Section 5 provides for equal pay for an equal amount of work. So if you are doing the same type of work, you should also be provided with the same remuneration. But you and me know that outside that position, you have issues of appraising the employees, and you have to reward or motivate those who work better than others. So while there is that general position, it may not be tenable when you start to bring in the traits of someone, you start to bring in how someone conducts himself or herself at place of work. But for starters, they must start from the same platform. But going forward now, the individual efforts will differentiate employee A from employee B, and that is not discrimination. So that is allowed where there is justification and based on merit. So merit-based performance and is rewarded better than the other person within the same brackets, it's allowed. So there's legal provision for that. And then when we talk in terms of the skill levels, for starters, again, Section 14 requires that before you go across the borders to recruit foreign nationals, you must first fish from the local ponds and see to it that there's a proper assessment of the skills level, expertise, what have you. Only where you are lacking, you can then go across the borders. But that said, there are some peculiar circumstances. Perhaps I must mention this. For example, ShopRite last year, there was a query or a complaint in that context to say that some jobs which could reasonably have been taken over by Zambians were given to the foreigners. But upon carrying out the investigations, we realized that they have a company policy where, for example, they would take 5 Zambians outside the country, take them to Malawi, Botswana, Zimbabwe, wherever there's ShopRite in Africa, and then get that Zimbabwean, bring him into Zambia, get that South African, bring him into Zambia, Kenyan into Zambia. So on that basis, therefore, what you see is not the representative picture of what is happening. Because in essence, these who are sitting on Zambian positions have
Hi, Commissioner, there?
Hello. So the equation balances to that extent. And you cannot, therefore, as a labor office, go there and say, no, can you terminate the contracts of these employees? Then they'll say, okay, fine, we'll also terminate the contracts of those Zambians. And in mines also, to a larger extent, that happens, that practice. You find some Zambians are in Australia, some Zambians are in South Africa under the same company. So you have to look at a global view other than one angle and then conclude. And those are some of the things that we face on a day-to-day basis. But I know it's heated up out there, but ours is not to follow the wind where it blows. We have to look at the law first, and then from the law we pick it up and then make those reasonable conclusions and safeguard the employer on one hand and safeguard the employee on the other hand. So in terms of productivity, which is the topic today, you have to look at all facets. Yes, you have recruited the qualified members of the team, but going forward, like the minister has said, what is the system in place that you have put to ensure that that recruited team member operates at that optimal level? Obviously, you are talking of regular training or training at intervals, depending on the requirement of that employee. And you're also looking at the tools. You are looking at how that person is exchanging that expertise. Do you have understudies? What have you? Has the company provided the necessary platform for this person to spar to the next level? So all those issues that are germane to the operations of that employee have to be put in place. Then you can have that attainment. You can have the sustenance of these productivity levels. And then outside that, the motivation. How do you motivate as employers? I know I said this in Livingston, those that attended the HR meeting. I said that HR are pivotal in an organization. They are the main players. They are the ones who create this interface. They are the ones who are a go between the employee and the company. So how do they motivate the employee? How do they convince management to respond positively to the demands of the employees? And how do employees fit in the objects of the company? Because they have to sing from the same hymn book. So you have to look at all these components. Otherwise, if you remove one wheel, even if the vehicle is brand new, it will not move. So that's how you must look at it. Yes, this is a brand new university graduate, but if you give him, by analogy, to drive a vehicle that has 3 wheels, he will not drive it. If he tries to drive it, it will just flip, and you'll be talking of losing life, you'll be talking of losing the vehicle. So that's how you must look at this issue of productivity. You have to look at it as an equation which has so many variables, so many components, and these components have to be put in proper places. Another legal issue which I've perhaps omitted, moderator.
We have an interesting one here. It actually says, the question actually says, Honorable Minister, what can we expect in terms of labor reforms? Are we likely to see the fulfillment of the restructuring of social security schemes to allow pensioners access to their money midterm as a way to increase opportunities for investment and entrepreneurship. I don't know whether you're able to tackle that one, Commissioner, or whether you'd like the Minister to make a comment.
I'll make an attempt. I was bringing the issue of social partner platform because in the Ministry of Labor, much as people say the ministry came up with this law, the ministry promulgated this statutory instrument, you must know that the genesis of laws in the Ministry of Labor starts from the social partners' point of view. Each partner has to bring to the table the submissions. And when they bring those submissions, then there's escalation until the law comes to fruition. So what am I saying? What I'm saying, one, is that if the social security, the social protection generally has to be transformed, these social partners have to bring agenda items that will drive the process to the promised land. And this process, by the way, cannot be driven to the promised land if resources are not properly factored into the whole agenda. So you have the issue of monies, you have the issue of the agenda items. So it is not an agenda that the ministry alone can drive across the river. Rather, it is an agenda that all sector players must come to the fore and contribute positively and agree, because by resolution, the agenda items will be escalated into law. That's how Ministry of Labor works. So if the ministry has a position, it will go through the tripartite, and the tripartite partners will either agree or disagree. And to answer the other question conclusively and exhaustively, why Zambia Institute of Human Resources is not a part of the committee, the simple answer is that that composition was agreed upon by the social partners. So if an amendment has to be done again, it has to go through the platform, and once they agree, then the laws will be amended. I don't know if that answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner. I will now start just taking all the questions that we've received here. And so the questions might come and seem a little random, but we want to ensure that our members have participated. The first question is, are there any plans for a sector-based minimum wage? Within maybe a minute, Commissioner, this could be something that you can respond to.
Thank you so much. Sector minimum wages, for which sector? Human resource or?
I believe this is all the sectors of our economy. I think this is a suggestion to look at having some minimum wages that are specific to, you know, the mining industry or the agriculture industry or telecommunications or something like that.
Okay, what is in the pipeline is agriculture sector. I think there's a draft statutory instrument. The media plans are underway, and the mines, of course, meetings could be slated for maybe the last quarter of this year, depending on the resources, of course. But what perhaps I must mention here is that sector minimum wages are a deterrence to unions because where you formulate a minimum wage, it applies to the non-unionized employees who are considered to be vulnerable and ought to be protected. And conversely, those that are unionized cannot use the minimum wage and proceed to go on strike. Rather, themselves, they have to use the collective bargaining process until they agree in a collective agreement as approved by the minister and registered by the Labor Commissioner. So those are two competing worlds. So if we woke up on another day and found that all sectors in the country have minimum wages, essentially you have pushed the unions out of existence because the employees are being looked after by the minister. That's what must be considered. And there is a plethora of cases from courts guiding on this, that a minimum wage is not meant for a unionized employee or an employee who has a structure of determining the wages and conditions of service. So yes, plans are there for those sectors I've mentioned, but there have to be some point where you say, okay, now we leave the unions to do their thing and negotiate for and on behalf of their members. Thank you.
All right. Another question is speaking to SI 48 and the exemptions. The question is, are we likely going to see these exemptions still in force in spite of COVID numbers going down? What would be your comment on that, Honorable Commissioner?
Thank you so much. If you look at that SI closely, you realize that much as the catalyst was COVID generally, the SI itself is of general application and was promulgated pursuant to Section 2 of the Employment Code Act. The basis for that SI is to cushion or mitigate the financial impact that the employer may face at any given time. So in other words, where the employer cannot sustain the wage bill or cannot sustain the numbers, the employer can then use that statutory instrument and apply to Ministry of Labor to be exempted from certain provisions of the Act. So it's a statutory instrument that is applicable beyond COVID. COVID just happened to be the catalyst, but it's of general application. And that said, there was a question which someone sent on sections 36 and 37 on leave days and payment of leave. Yes. The position is that while those sections have been exempted, that does not necessarily mean that it is prohibited for someone to accumulate days, or it is prohibited for someone to be paid cash in lieu or commute leave days. No. What it simply means is the status quo is maintained. So leave days, payment of commutation, what have you, is to be regulated in accordance with the general terms and conditions of service. If it's in the contract, it shall be so, or collective agreement. So we've received or been receiving some queries as to whether employees should commute or should be allowed to go on leave. Yes, they should be allowed, because the sections were simply exempted because there were some grave errors which were noticed. They were not drafted, or the law was not enacted in accordance with what was envisioned in the first place when you looked at the master bill, so to say. So it's just the status quo. And then also in terms of management employees, where they are exempted from gratuity, there is a rider to say who have gratuity in their contracts. It's not cross-cutting. So if your contract doesn't have gratuity, it follows therefore that you have to place reliance on the Act, and specifically Section 73. So you have to be paid gratuity. That's what it means. Thank you, moderator.
All right, thank you so much. I'll take another question here. From the minister's speech on psychometric testing, is government planning to assist setting up institutions to undertake psychometric testing locally within the country? I believe this should be a question, Director Mayamba.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Moderator. Actually, like the Honorable Minister mentioned, we are the ones that are mandated to offer psychometric tests, and we will soon be introducing legislation to that effect. The idea really is that we should grow this sector. On our part, we have now computerized or digitalized those tests so that we make them more accessible. They can actually now be accessed on an Android device. But we want that you practitioners should have access to these systems. So we were trying to put in place what we call an accreditation system, where you don't have to rely on us to come to your company to assess your employees. No, because they're now going to be digitalized, they'll be web-based. It'll be possible that you, from your own institution, could actually administer those tests to your employees, either they recruit or maybe want to promote people or probably want to shift people around. So we'll be able to provide in the legislation how this can actually work, that probably you could get a license to run a number of tests that you want on your own, whether you are a recruiting institution or even a recruiting agency, because some recruiting agencies usually use our services. They hire us to do psychometrics for them. We do that for most of the companies that are employing. But again, we feel we're not being fair to the private practitioners who may want also to grow in this area. We want to provide a legislative framework to be able to support the growth of this sector, and also provide a data bank and test bank from where they could draw the different types of tests that could be used. We also...
I was just going to ask a question. Will this legislation bar employers from maybe, let's say they have psychometric testing services that may come as part of the packages of the human capital management systems that could be from different countries. Will this legislation bar utilization of psychometric tests that are provided by entities that are not within Zambia? Or would you need them to be tested and vetted to be okay first before they can be used locally?
Yes, exactly. As you may know, psychometric tests are contextual. So when you are transferring a psychometric test from one jurisdiction to another, you need to have it customized. So we'll provide for accreditation system, will provide for the clearing house for tests which are imported, even for practitioners who are coming to practice in the country, so that we ensure that the right psychometric tests are being applied for people in this environment. Because psychometrics are, as a result of, they are subject to a lot of influences, including the stage of economic development, education system, the culture, etc. And so we want to ensure that whatever psychometrics are being used or applied in this country are actually appropriate for our environment. So we not really want to ban, but we want to ensure that the appropriate instruments are actually being used. But over and above, we just want to promote the use of psychometrics as in addition to the other traditional methods of selection. So you don't have to necessarily rely 100% on psychometrics, but you could use it as part of the criteria that you use for selection processes. In fact, where these have been used most of the time, they're actually used as complementary to other methods such as interviews. We've used this especially within the public service through when employing, especially when employing the armed forces and the, in most of the service commission, civil service commission, local government service commission, we will be able to use this, as well as for training institutions, such as colleges and universities. The idea really is that, the grade 12 certificate and other qualifications are very, very important. But what psychometrics try and help us do is to try and fit somebody's, somebody's characteristics to a job. So if you are looking, for instance, for someone to work in the medical field. The medical field is very wide. So there'll be different characteristics that are suitable for someone to work as a surgeon. There are those who would work very well as probably a physician and probably work as a pharmacist, or probably work as a, in another specialty of medicine. So it could be the same professional discipline, but there will be different areas where people would be able to fit in. HR, for instance, is also very broad. There are those who would work very well in HR development. There are those who would work very, very well in HR management. And so what psychometrics can actually help us do is to be able to fit people into the right jobs. But we're also going down to also affect the area of career counseling and guidance. So we've also collaborated with the Ministry of Education to try and promote the use of the interest tests for school-going children, so that we can be able to train them in terms of what their areas of strength and interests are. So that as they choose careers, they'll be choosing careers that are best suited to their inherent characteristics and abilities. So like I said earlier, people don't just get into college to study what is available, but they would have formulated their choice of career based on what they're inherently gifted or talented in. And so we want to use psychometric tests to also respond to the call, as you have heard from the minister's speech, by His Excellency for merit-based decisions when it comes to human capital. So whether it is for employment, for training, or whether it's for scholarship, we just want to have a scientific method that we can actually defend. Okay, HR practitioners, most of the time you're called to explain how you made your decision. So these are scientifically designed tests, which when repeated even several times, they'll give you more or less the same result. Right. So we are looking for.
There's actually a question that would go as, I think, a follow-up question, what you've just indicated here. The question, firstly, thanks the Honorable Minister for her very elaborate speech. And then the question says, look, to what extent are we going to see these things being embedded in the public sector, in the parastatals or ministries? Are we likely going to see some of these productivity tools that you've described here being utilized by government departments to enable, public institutions deliver better services in that respect? Would you quickly respond to that if you're able to, and also cognizant of the fact that we're almost running out of time? So I'll give you within just 2 minutes for you to address that one.
Yeah, so for the public service, it's at different levels. For the civil service, for instance, permanent secretaries and directors are already on performance contracts, so that is a starting point. And then all the ministries and spending agencies are using the balance scorecard for purposes of strategic framework or alignment. And the balance scorecard, like I mentioned here, is the best tool for purpose of embedding productivity into the strategic framework of a company. But we're also working with other public sector institutions. Right now, I've got a team of consultants from the ministry who are carrying out assessments and designing interventions for IDC group of companies. So the IDC, as you know, has a portfolio of over 30 companies. And so we've targeted the IDC, and we also have targeted the TVET institutions to try and build capacity, productive capacity in the TVET institutions. Now, that's just a starting point. But of course, we're looking to areas or sectors where there will be the biggest impact. For the private sector, I wish to call upon you, especially HR practitioners, to take an interest in this. We've got consultants who can be able to, at the individual organizational level, who can be able to help design programs and instill those programs and ensure that they're sustainable. I must be quick to mention that the benefits of productivity are actually long-term. And so as champions of productivity, you will be required most of the time to defend your actions. And especially that if these are in conflict sometimes with the short-term objectives of the owners of the businesses, because they want quick results. So for instance, investing in people is of course a noble cause, and it has to be balanced with the business objectives of making profit. And so most of the time you find yourself in the firing range as to why you have to focus on, instead of making profit quickly, why you have to work on building the people. And so I would even urge the Institute to probably increase awareness on the need to protect HR practitioners, because most of the time they know what is right, but of course it's against the competing needs of the owners of the businesses. So in order to be safe and save your job, you may wish to ignore certain things that you ought to have done. So probably as you look at even reviewing the legislation that pertains to HR practitioners, we'll have to think about how do we protect HR practitioners so that they can be able to make the right decisions that are good both for the institution and also for the people, so that we don't have to compromise.
Thank you so much. I was almost thinking that those were your last words for the day, but I'll give you within the next 30 seconds, if you could just, what are your final words to the attendees for this forum today?
We have learned a lot. As you know, productivity is about continuous learning. I'm especially thrilled with the interest that the HR practitioners have on the subject of productivity. And I sincerely hope this is a start and the beginning of good things to come. I'm happy to inform you that the Honorable Minister who addressed us earlier is actually herself a productivity practitioner. The first time she stepped in this ministry, the first question she asked was about productivity. So already we have a champion within government who's going to be able to support these issues of productivity. So let us take advantage and ensure that we build these capacities, that we also ensure that even the owners of the businesses or institutions also take an interest. As you know, nothing can happen unless there's commitment from the top. If the top is not committed, no matter how talented you are as an HR practitioner, no matter how many tools you know about how to improve productivity, if you do not convince, or if the owners are not convinced, it may be difficult for you to implement those. So let's take advantage and build this capacity. Already by the sheer volume of our numbers, we've got this critical mass, which if we worked in concert, we could actually effect a lot of impact. The ministry is available to provide information. The ministry is available to provide guidance on issues of productivity. We're also available to learn from you, because you're the ones on the ground, and there's a lot that we can actually learn from you. So my appeal is that let's work together. Let's take advantage of the opportunity that we have now to be able to grow productivity in this country. And like I gave an example of a country like Singapore, which was at our level 60 years ago, but today it's a first world country. And that's for the record, you know. All right, thanks, Mr. Moderator. I was almost going beyond my time.
We appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Commissioner, your last thoughts? Within 30 seconds to a minute.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I enjoyed the interaction, but I've seen that there are a lot of questions around the Act. And going forward, you could still forward those questions. At some point, I know I was added to the HR forum, but I was kicked out in split seconds after maybe people realized I'm not HR. But by extension, I think, or by default, I'm an HR practitioner because of the office that I occupy. So we can still interact. You can still bring forward those questions on a daily basis. It shouldn't just be a matter of waiting for such an interaction. Really, it must be a daily thing where you can freely reach out to me and ask those questions. So I think that's my only plea, really. Otherwise, thank you so much for organizing this discussion. It was worth it, and time just flew in seconds, it would appear.
Yeah, that's really true. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Commissioner. Are we likely going to be hearing any words from the Minister?
From the Minister or the Ministry?
Sorry, from the Minister. I can see, I don't know whether she was still going to say anything as we pass. No.
I don't know if she's still logged in.
She is logged in. Okay, all right.
I can prompt her. Honorable Minister. I'm not too sure if she's anywhere near.
No, that's all right.
I think her speech was comprehensive. What we need, the Commission, maybe you can just help us with a copy, which we are going to share with our members by email.
Not a problem. I think that can be done. I know Mr. Mayamba has a copy somewhere, which can be emailed. It shall be emailed, guaranteed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With your permission, President, allow me to invite.
Hello?
Hi, with your permission, allow me to invite Registrar to just give the vote of thanks, and then we'll allow you to close after that.
Okay, granted.
Thank you, moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. It is, and it gives me great and immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks to this great event and assembly of this very special kind. I'm gratified to thank the Minister of Labor and Social Security, Honorable Brenda Tambatamba, the Labor Commissioner, Mr. Givens Mtengwa, the Director, National Productivity, Mr. Cyprian Mayamba, the Governing Council of the Institute, the esteemed practitioners, the Secretariat for this great event. As we shall promise, the Institute and the profession at large, Honorable, stands ready and willing to work with a new dawn government in rebuilding our great country through the efficient and effective development and effectiveness utilization of human capital in the country. As we shall request, this comes with a great call from your office and the government at large to support seriously the Institute in terms of legislation, which will give the Institute the proper position to carry out its mandate. It is also a request for the government and your minister to take keen interest in the events and programs of the Institute. To the practitioners, I want to say there is no doubt, and there should be no doubt, that you do play a critical role in productivity. But this also comes with a serious call that in your conduct of business, you must do so ethically and professionally. I want to thank you all for attending this event. May God bless us and bless our great nation, Zambia. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Registrar. Mr. President, your closing remarks.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think the registrar has summarized it all. What remains is, I think, to thank our discussants again and our participants for this morning or afternoon now Yeah, we will continue to build on these webinars. As you can see today, we've had to deal with a topic that has a direct impact on the bottom line of our organizations as well as our country. So thank you very much for the active participation of everyone. The questions that have been raised and have not been answered, we will ensure that we'll develop a table where we are going to ask the Minister of Labour to provide summarized responses to each of those questions which have not been answered. And then that will be shared with all the members. So with those remarks, I think I thank you, Mr. Moderator, for the great job you've done today and the good discussants for their participation. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We appreciate, and just to extend, another olive branch to our members. If you still have questions that have not been shared on this blog, feel free to write to our email address, and the team at Secretariat is going to add all those questions to the list of questions that we'll send to the Ministry of Labour for you to get responses. We thank you so much for your time today. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you and good day, everyone.
Thank you.